Hey friends, welcome back to another video. Today I am super excited to make the part 2 of a video I published back in the summertime, which was reviewing every book I'd read up to that point in the year with one sentence each. This video is going to cover all of the books I read since then, from July through to December, and I'm excited to share all of my new favorites and flops from the second half of 2022. I'll link that first video in the description box. You can go watch that either before this one or after, so you can get a full picture of all of the books I read this year. As of recording, I have finished 114 books, one book shy of my Goodreads goal. I'll definitely finish a couple more books before the end of the year, so as a compromise, I'll leave my one sentence reviews of whichever books I finish between filming this video and January 1st, 2023 in the pinned comment so that this video is complete. I love using this structure of trying to stick to one sentence per review because I am not a concise person ever, but definitely not when reviewing books. I can talk forever about a specific book, whether I liked it, hated it, felt blah about it. I could talk forever. So this is a great way for me to review everything without it taking ages. And if you want more in-depth thoughts on any of these books, you can go check me out on Goodreads. I have it linked in the description box, where I do typically much more verbose reviews of all of these books. Hopping in my TARDIS and jumping back to July 2022 to get started, the first book I'm going to review in this video is Work Won't Love You Back, a treatise on why capitalism and neoliberalism are ruining our lives, leading to widespread loneliness, isolation, exhaustion, and a lack of time for relationships, hobbies, and happiness. Relatable, but also super depressing. 4 stars. Delilah Green doesn't care. Sapphic romance that is equally steamy and sweet, and is as much about childhood wounds, friendship, and family as it is about romance. Loved the bisexual rep. 5 stars. Reprieve. This book was interesting social commentary that's certainly worth exploring, wrapped up in escape room horror that didn't quite work for me. A disjointed narrative with indistinct characters. 2 stars. The Beautiful Ones. Not just a romance, but a story about coming to terms with who we are, accepting our differences, eschewing tradition and expectations to do what's right for us, and the ways in which the patriarchy can disempower women, forcing them to give up what they want and who they are just to get by. 4 stars. My year of rest and relaxation. Thanks, I hate it. No one needed a book that completely misses the point while also misrepresenting mental illness. 1 star. The Vegetarian. A quietly haunting and mesmerizing portrait of a woman slowly losing herself in a misogynistic world, and a commentary on human cruelty. 5 stars. A Certain Hunger, a book about the female experience told in an irreverent, ironic, pretentious, and ridiculously bloody way. 4 stars. Her Body and Other Parties, a melancholic and deeply feminist work, reimagining fairy tales and urban legends to tell women's stories through a queer perspective. 5 stars. Lucy, angry girl becomes angry woman, a coming-of-age story. 5 stars. The Stationery Shop, a bittersweet story of first love, heartbreak, and new beginnings. 4 stars. Moving into August. Legends and Lattes, the most wholesome book ever. If you like coffee and being happy, you should read this book. 5 stars. We Are the Weather, a complete disappointment. Please read Fowers Eating Animals instead. 1 star. Gin City, great concept and world building with a phenomenal protagonist that didn't get nearly enough screen time because of all of the POV switches and side quests. 3 stars. The Wife Before, Rebecca did it better. 1 star. Book Lovers, way better than People We Meet on Vacation, with amazing characters and a lovely central romance. 1 star docked for the random inclusion of medical misinformation that definitely didn't need to be there. 4 stars. Rolling in the Deep, a short and not so sweet novella, dripping with foreboding that ends with a bloody flourish. 4 stars. The House of Salt and Sorrows, a story with an interesting premise that squanders it by trying to do too much and tacking on a trite ending. 2 stars. Our Wives Under the Sea, a hazy fever dream laced with grief and longing, atmospheric, sapphic, and unsettling. 5 stars. Under One Roof, no one needed yet another ginormous man falling in love with a teeny tiny quirky nerdy lady, and no one needed the honestly concerning sex scene. 1 star. I'm Afraid of Men, a poignant exploration of the ways in which gender stereotypes hold all of us back, from the perspective of a trans woman of color. 5 stars. Spirits Abroad, an absolutely beautiful collection of SFF short stories that are inspired by Malaysian culture, full of joy, loss, heartbreak, and love. 5 stars. September, Slewfoot. Witchy pagan butts heads with her Puritan community as religious fervor leads to evil mob mentality. 5 stars. Never Coming Home. A modern interpretation of And Then There Were None with influencers, strange pacing, an obvious twist, and flimsy characters. 2 stars. Braiding Sweetgrass. A passionate and thoughtful takedown of consumerist capitalism and reductionist science, and a vision of a better future, informed by indigenous wisdom and a holistic approach to ecosystems and our environment. 5 stars. The Hole, a bleak and eerie story about awful people being awful to each other, with an ending that made up for a somewhat boring middle. 3 stars. October, Bliss Montage, a series of unsettling and surreal short stories, highlighting small, heavy moments, people and relationships falling apart, and the many ways we hurt each other. 4 stars. Fever Dream, a surreal and nebulous cautionary tale that lost me somewhat in its execution. 2 stars. The Turn of the Screw, a gothic setting with paranormal activity, an unreliable narrator, and creepy children. What more could you want? 4 stars. Wake the Bones, a witchy, dark, southern gothic YA that didn't quite live up to its potential, full of bland characters, stilted writing, and uneven world building. 2 stars. In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife, a somewhat melodramatic dark academia thriller that really shone in terms of its characters and their infinitely complex motivations and obsessions. 4 stars. What Moves the Dead, a bit of a disappointment with a discordant tone and lack of tension or stakes. 3 stars. Pachinko, a heartbreaking and at times disjointed generational tale that frustrated me even as I fell in love with the characters. 3 stars. Dracula, a loquacious and melodramatic tale of love, loss, and the triumph over evil. 4 stars. Tripping Arcadia. Reading this book was a very similar experience to not being able to look away from a car crash. A huge waste of potential that was tiresomely repetitive and strained my ability to suspend disbelief with a lackluster ending. 1 star. November, Babel, a great concept with a fascinating exploration of the connections between linguistics and colonization that lacked a bit in its execution with a repetitive and heavy-handed treatment of its themes. 3 stars. The Secret History, the classic dark academia tale of the unraveling of 6 university students into obsession, envy, and a tendency to the brutal and dramatic. 5 stars. Such Small Hands, a nightmarish and hypnotic narrative that dives into the darkest recesses of a child's mind. 5 stars. The Book Eaters, an exploration of what it means to be a woman and a mother through the lens of reimagined fairy tales and the myth of the vampire. 5 stars. Vita Nostra, a puzzle of a book for people who love mind-bending narratives that leave you questioning reality. Dark, strange, and incomprehensible. 5 stars. Wuthering Heights. This is not a love story. Catherine and Heathcliff need therapy stat. A dark and depressing exploration of generational trauma and obsessive, unhealthy love. 3 stars. The Last Nomad, a brutal yet tender look at the strict gender roles and purity culture of pre-Civil War Somalia, with sprinklings of the joy, beauty, and wonder of a disappearing culture. 4 stars. Last Wool and Testament, a cute but pretty boring whodunit with an obvious twist. 2 stars. December, The Little Stranger, a slow-paced, gothic, atmospheric character study with very little of the promised spookiness. 3 stars. Wrong Place, Wrong Time, a run-of-the-mill, predictable thriller focused on the relationship between a mother and son. 3 stars. The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, a heartwarming and adorable found family story with a wholesome romance to boot. 5 stars. Daughter of the Moon Goddess, an adult book that reads like very young YA, with a melodramatic writing style and a plot that really dragged until the final quarter. 2 stars. Counterfeit, brain candy style easy reading with commentary on consumerism and complex female characters, plus an interesting twist on our understanding of the narrator that really piqued my interest in the second half of the book. 4 stars. I'm Glad My Mom Died, a deeply raw and personal memoir about a child star's struggle with an abusive mother, eating disorders, and alcoholism that absolutely broke my heart. 4 stars. White Horse, a horror story that's less horrifying and more intimate look at one Indigenous woman's experiences of family, friendship, love, loss, and grief, which I absolutely loved, and a repetitive side story about her cousin's controlling and obsessive husband, which I did not. 3 stars. Trust, an at times meandering commentary on uber wealthy and powerful men and forgotten women that drew me in at the beginning, lost me in the middle, and roped me right back in the end. 4 stars. And the last book I'm going to include in this video, though hopefully not the last book I read in 2022. Don't forget to check the pinned comment for the 1-sentence reviews of any books I finish after this one till the end of the year. But the final one in this video, The Dangers of Smoking in Bed. A shocking and subversive short story collection, which sadly wasn't for me, with the exception of a few stories. Please check trigger warnings before you read this one. 2 stars. And that's it, all the books I read from July to December 2022, reviewed in 1 sentence each. I hope you enjoyed this video and part 1 as well. I would love to hear your thoughts on any of the books mentioned. I love chatting about books with y'all in the comments. I'm not including my reading stats in this video since I do expect to finish a couple more books, but let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in a video going over my yearly reading stats. Would you want it to be its own video? Would you rather me include that as part of my reading journal flip through? Let me know. Head over to my Goodreads, linked in the description box, and add me as a friend on there so we can be reading buddies. And that way you can easily add any of the books I talked about in this video to your reading list, if any of them piqued your interest. Don't forget to watch Plant Miss days 1 through 3. They're linked in the description box. There's a playlist with all the Plant Miss videos for 2022. You especially don't want to miss my new bullet journal setup because there's a giveaway in that one, which may be of interest. And with that, I'm going to get going. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you really soon in my next one for Plant Miss Day 5. Bye, friends.